You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We talked to, earlier in the show, we broke down a little Utah spring ball. Steve Bartle was joining us from KSLSports.com. Let's get the Cougar angle on this as well. Mitch Harper from KSLSports.com, kind enough to hang out with us. Mitch, how are you?
Busy day, Scotty. The portal never sleeps. When people tell me, oh, now that the seasons are over, you got a lot of time on your hands. Sometimes busy season.
All right, so Rob Wright hops in the portal. That doesn't necessarily mean a guy's leaving. It just means that he's going to, test and see what else is out there and see what kind of dollar bills are out there. He will be in demand. What are the chances he's back in a Cougar uniform next year?
I think there's a chance. And, it's such unfortunate that it gets to this point because like his situation at Baylor last year, the deck's pretty much cleared for him to be the guy, the number one player. But, Rob Wright, you kind of know what you're getting when you added Rob Wright last year. And Scott Drew was pretty transparent and adamant that Rob Wright signed a contract and he still ended up at BYU. So this was always a possibility. And BYU has done its due diligence with exploring other avenues. But sure, I mean, if you can get Rob Wright back, you definitely, I think, look at that. Now, it hasn't always been successful, whether it was basketball or football. You think back to Cody Epps in football, that didn't work out. It really changed the trajectory of him. But Rob Wright's the best point guard in this portal class. I really believe that. I mean, he's an excellent player. And I know that Cougar fans out there have mixed feelings about Rob Wright, but he, as a ball handler on the offensive end, he's outstanding. Defensively, sure, there's a lot of issues there with Rob Wright that he's got to improve. And I think he did in stretches in the postseason. I think just what's unfortunate, Scotty, is that he tells some outlets, like BYU TV and the Deseret News, that if he's playing college basketball, he will be at BYU. I think what he gave me in Portland was probably the more real answer, where he just didn't know, is what he said. He didn't have a clear idea yet of what his future was going to be. And that's just the nature of what college sports have become, where you almost have to assume everyone is gone until they make it clear as day that they're running it back for another season or re-signing for yet another year. And Rob Wright, he hits the portal, and I'm sure his agents have done tons of back channeling to really know what the market is like. He's not diving in without seeing potentially a robust market without back channeling. But BYU, I think, definitely should not give up on that opportunity to bring back Rob Wright into the fold because he's an excellent player.
Well, and I would certainly, if you're a Cougar fan and you're, angry or upset, I would say this, like, first off, I know these guys are being very well compensated, but it's still a kid. And when you get done with the season, and I've seen this, up close and in person, guys are emotional. They're looking at a situation where these are their brothers. They've just gone to battle. It's been a difficult loss, and everybody's like, let's run it back. Let's go. And then everybody kind of calms down, and then you start seeing some numbers, and you can change your opinion pretty quickly. So I wouldn't hold that against him that much. I know a lot of BYU fans are salty, but at the end of the day, it is a business, and if that's your son, you're going to want him to set himself up as much as he possibly can going into life, and that's a good way to do it.
That's true, and Rob Wright, he's got a lot of siblings too. I think he's the oldest of 8 siblings, so he can really create a lot of wealth for his family potentially with that, and he obviously probably did with BYU as well. It's just kind of strange to see how he's at BYU's annual awards, and then he's hitting the pool. I will say too, though, that this locker room for BYU, I think, was in a pretty good place. This isn't a situation where that they're frustrated with Kevin Young. Now, Kevin Young's a very direct coach. He's point blank, matter of fact, like an NBA coach would be. And I think these players respond to that. But it's almost like the nature of basketball guys are kind of wired this way where everything is a 1 year deal. Even AJ DeBonsa was, 3 different high schools in 3 years. Rob Wright has been with a lot of different programs. Baylor, BYU was with a couple different high schools as well. This is just kind of the nature of high level 5-star basketball players. It seems if they're not one and done in the NBA, they're going to be looking at their options maybe elsewhere in the sport. But I think that Rob Wright and BYU, I think he's really enjoyed his time at BYU. And I don't think this is a case of he just wanted to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible, because Kevin Young really wanted to build around Rob Wright. He said as much exiting Portland at the NCAA tournament, that he was a guy that they could build around. And I think the challenge, though, for whatever team ends up getting Rob Wright, can he be the leader, a heart and soul of a team? I think that was where he fell flat with this BYU team this past year when challenged by Kevin Young after Richie Saunders goes down. AJ did a solid job. Even he admitted that it was a challenge for him. But for Rob Wright, I think that's still, a difficult proposition for him. And when you bring up the kids piece, he still feels kind of like a kid in many respects, whereas AJ kind of carried himself like a grown man in many aspects, from his media approach and the way he went about his business on and off the court. Rob Wright still feels like that kid that many people refer to these guys as now, even though they're getting tons of money thrown their way and have great opportunities. He still feels like that. So that's a challenge too. And if he was to be back at BYU or wherever he ends up going, that's going to be something I think will be very interesting to see if he can be a leader of a team, because at BYU, I think that kind of came up a little bit short this past year.
So if he does indeed leave, and so you're minus your big three from last year, you obviously add the Branch kid, who's expected to be another great player, but how does the team building go forward for BYU with losing your 3 key players, assuming that AJ's not coming back, which I know there's some rumors out there, but he's gone. He's going to the NBA. Come on now.
No question. He better move on. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. You got to be the number 1 pick. It makes all the sense in the world for him to move on. It'd be shocking if he returned. So, I mean, BYU's got to get starter caliber players. And I think that's the issue. If you lose a Rob Wright, is you probably only have Bruce Branch and Kennard Davis as guys that you would feel confident could be starters. From the guard line, you'd have KJ Perry, who joined the program at the mid-year point. He's a combo guard, really explosive player. He could be pretty good. I mean, he's kind of a very raw Ja Morant, like when Ja Morant was at Murray State. Very explosive player is KJ Perry, number 2 junior college prospect in the 2026 cycle. Again, he joined in January, so he's been around the program the last handful of years. And they also get Nate Pickens back, a UC Riverside transfer who suffered a season-ending injury in training camp last October. He told me that he wants to be back at BYU. His expected return is from his injury in May to be cleared for full go. But again, I don't know if you just hand the keys over to those guys. Even with Rob Wright and AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders, that was still only good for 10th place in the Big 12. You got to level it up on that starting 5, and you got to get more size too. And BYU's been linked to an international player who's 23 years old, just turned 23, from the United Kingdom. He plays currently in Italy professionally in the EuroLeague, in Quinn Ellis. He's been linked to Louisville, Kentucky, Duke, BYU as well. He would make a lot of sense. He's kind of in a Yegor Gilman type of mold, a little bit shorter, but a really good passer and facilitator like Yegor was. And Rob Wright was pretty good too. He just maybe took up a little more real estate in the paint than Yegor did during his one season at BYU. And BYU's been linked to some other portal names like a Colby Garland from San Jose State. You probably saw him in the Mountain West. Yeah. He's kind of more like a Rob Wright, where very ball dominant, 20 plus points per game. JJ Mandequit, former Utah prep player, just completed this past season with Danny Sprinkle and the Washington Huskies. He's in the portal. BYU was heavily involved in his recruitment. They hosted him on a visit with AJ DeBonsa 2 years ago. So there's always players, but again, in the Big 12, where if you're trying to, chase being potentially a top 16 seed, I mean, that's the challenge in front of BYU. They know they have pieces and personnel to get into the tournament and get in the bracket, but I think we're learning as these last couple of years, it's becoming more chalky than ever. You got to get a top 16 seed to really make a deep run. And the personnel that you have currently, that's just not going to be enough. So they got to retool the front court and that guard line if you don't bring back Rob Wright.
Where did things get sideways with Xavier Stanton? Was it just too much too soon for him?
He was a really raw player coming in. I remember talking with Keith Smart, the former Utah Prep head coach who coached Dayton and AJ DeBonsa at Utah Prep. And they loved his shot blocking ability. He was viewed as one of the best shot blockers in the 2025 high school recruiting class, but offensively and defensively, very raw. Some questions too about maybe the level of competition in the region he was playing at in Las Vegas. And that was maybe a byproduct of moving on to Utah Prep for his senior year. He also dealt with knee rehab this past year that caused him to only play 9 games. And he told me that was a knee injury that was probably dating back to his high school career. But, he was at the time before AJ committed the highest rated recruit BYU ever landed. And so you would have thought that 7-footer, you want to spend some time with him, but might have been also just a misevaluation where this learning curve was too steeper than maybe expected, even though they knew he was raw in many aspects. Maybe it was still too steep because even before the knee rehab really kicked into high gear at the end of non-conference play, he wasn't seeing much time. And so it would make a lot of sense, with him in the portal. He was linked to USC, UNLV when he was coming out of high school, maybe run it back, go to UNLV in the Mountain West and, be a dominant guy. Because again, if you players with the size that he has, if he has a dominant year or two, can always change paths again with the portal and maybe get a bigger payday down the road. So I think it might've been a little bit of maybe too big of a steep learning curve right away, but he's got ability. I just think that the health and combination of maybe the needs of this BYU team, as far as going forward and what they want to be a, top 16 caliber team next year, maybe just didn't align and he moves on into the portal.
Certainly, when you're able to get a guy like AJ DeBonsa, that's going to inflate your overall payroll, if you will. Does BYU bring that back down, or is that the level that's set? And whether it's AJ or somebody else, or just spread out a little bit more evenly across the team, that's the number that BYU is going to go with going forward.
Yeah, BYU is going to be well resourced, and they can get into the mix for players. As far as the number, I do expect that to be a little bit down this year. Because one, the view that they have maybe of this freshman class, yes, they got Bruce Branch the third, and I don't look at him, and I don't think this BYU team maybe does as a number one option like AJ was viewed, but still that this freshman class wasn't as impactful as what the 2026 or 2025 cycle was, and AJ was the top cream of the crop and probably the best guy this past year. But BYU is going to still be resourced. I mean, this is a different year when it comes to rev share. And we know BYU wants to make it clear they live by the rules, crossing T's, dotting I's. There's always workarounds, though, to find ways with NIL deals to make sure you got a very well-resourced roster. And BYU is going to be in the mix. I still think that the boosters, the donors for Kevin Young, they still support Kevin Young and his vision with this BYU basketball program. But, the element of having rev share in place for this portal cycle makes it a little bit different. So you might not have as big of a payroll last season when you had AJ, Rob Wright, and it felt like before rev share went into effect, it was kind of a free-for-all with front-end deals for these players. Now it kind of lowers and maybe limits and makes you have more of a money ball approach to building out this roster for year 3 under Kevin Young.
Mitch, you're the best, man. Appreciate it. We didn't even have a chance to talk spring football. I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to talk about that. But never a dull moment in your world. There's no off season anymore when it comes to college athletics. But again, thanks for all you do.
No problem, Scotty. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Harper, Cougar Insider, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.